Hey gang, welcome. Thanks for joining me again today on short notice. This is going to be a fairly brief broadcast, but I did want to let you come back in, especially those of you who were here for the first phase of this project, private school here in Raleigh, North Carolina. All right, let me move you guys so you can see what I'm doing. Hang on. Usually I cover you up when I do this, but I'm just gonna let you get seasick today. There you go. All right, so in the first phase, some of you were watching me, I did watercolor sketch. You can still see lots of bits of that here and there and here and there. I did yellow, orange, fuchsia, red, and blue. So I drew it in watercolor pencil 4 times. Then I did a little bit of pen and ink, and you can see some of that here. Let's just zoom in right on that house. All right, but just a little bit, not much. And then, as you can see, I did a big blue wash, big 2-inch brush, and so on. Now, in the interim, I've done a little bit more, as you can see, mostly green, trees, orange, and so forth. There are just a couple things I want to show you just for fun, especially those of you who are aspiring watercolorists. I mentioned earlier that part of the fun of the watercolor pencils is you never know how they're going to appear. And in fact, I pointed out specifically these erroneous marks. That is, they were part of my earlier rough sketch, an orange line there and a red line there, when in fact, the line I finally determined is supposed to be up there. So what do I do with those erroneous marks? The answer is nothing. Those are going to stay. Those look good. Those are just interesting marks. They're going to stay right where they are. I mean, I'll do more up here, but I don't know how much. All right, but on the other hand, I have some, in what I consider to really be the most interesting part of this scene is this Victorian house up on the hill. And there are 2 places here where the watercolor pencils are not working very well. One is, it looks like I've even got an ink line. Right, that's supposed to be a chimney, an orange brick chimney. I'll paint it orange later, but that's got a line going through it. That's not a deal breaker, that's not life or death, but I don't like it. So I'm gonna lift that out, and then here on the porch of this roof is a blue line, which is, again, erroneous. That doesn't bother me. But those 2 marks are not working. So many of you already know this, but some of you, this might be a good instruction. So let's start with the chimney. I'm going to mask off the chimney with good old-fashioned, actually not good old-fashioned, good newfangled high quality frog tape, or in this case imitation thereof, good quality masking tape. It really is better than the old stuff. Why am I masking them? Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. This is a household cleaning product, and it's usually, this is cut in half. It comes in a bar of watercolor. And it works really quite a bit like an eraser. Hello, YW. And hello, Hugo. Wonderful, from Mexico, Mexico, very good. Very good. Hello, Monique, and hello from Qatar. How fun, way to go. Glad you guys are back. All right, so Magic Eraser, watch this. It's damp. It's not soaking wet, but it's damp. I'm rubbing it very much like an eraser, like a pencil eraser, quite vigorously. And I want to be a little bit careful when I pull up this tape, because the paper, of course, now is wet. So be a little bit careful. There, and look. That line that was going through that chimney is now completely gone. Woohoo, isn't that nice? So again, the tool is Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. That's a kitchen cleaning product that watercolors have gone gaga over, myself included. Now let's do the next one here, this roof that has a blue line. Let me reiterate that most of the erroneous marks, the mistakes, most of them I like. The great majority of them I like, but there are a few, like this, that I don't like. So I could also rub them out with a brush. It wouldn't be quite as clean as what I'm doing here, but that's another option. All right, so just rub it quite vigorously, actually. And look at, in fact, this will actually lift, the magic eraser will actually lift permanent ink to an extent. Very often out of watercolor paper, so you can't even see the ink mark anymore. There we go. So that was just a little trick, a technique I used. I did the same thing when you weren't looking on this building right here. But that, all right. Now, one thing I do want to show you, not before we go. I mentioned earlier, I go back and forth, ink, paint, ink, paint, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the reason is, of course, because the essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And instead of doing all of the drawing first, like I think a lot of young people or students would probably just assume you do all the line work and then the paint. Well, certainly you could do that. But because I go back and forth, see now my eye, my mind, my brain, my hand is responding to the paint. In fact, up here in the tree, I'm intentionally outlining some of the little holes that I left and outlining some of the tree part, some of the branches. See, but the idea is, the concept is, I'm now drawing on top of the watercolor and responding to the watercolor instead of vice versa. Again, conventional thinking would make you do all the line work first and then do the painting. That would be, I think that's how most people would think it should be done. But over the years I've discovered, oh no, wait, it's a lot more fun. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Hey, I see another, this lamppost right here, which is actually going to be dark gray in the finished painting. But I want this edge, I'm going to do the same Mr. Clean Magic Eraser trick. Blot up the excess water. And again, be a little bit careful when you take off this tape, because the paper is wet, so it would be easy for it to tear when the paper's in a wet condition. Now that's wet, so I can't draw on that right now. But let's go back to once again, what I just did right there, that was just an abstract mark. It was not intended to render or draw anything. It's just purely abstract mark, like that. There'll be several. I'll do that many times in the course of the painting. Of course, I do that very much in my oil and acrylic painting, because the same rules apply, right? The essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And now up here in this corner, as you can see, I made the tree go. I pretty much ignored the pencil mark that I put down earlier, and I made the trees go very soft and abstract. And they are going to stay. They are going to stay soft, but I want to do a little bit of I think I'm going to tackle this, the logo, if you will, the name of the team. Maybe a concession stand, I'm not sure. But I should probably try to get this fairly accurate, even though I don't want it too tight, but I do want it to be accurate. So the young man who's receiving this as a gift, he will, recognize his school logo in this painting. Warriors. The name of the school is St. David's School. So, yeah, I guess it's appropriate that they're St. David's Warriors, right? The original St. David was a famous warrior. There. And then above it, I almost can't make it out in the picture, but I can see that it says St. David's School. That's way too small. I don't want that to be legible at all. That would be too much. In other words, if I could write it so it's legible, but it would stand out in contrast to the rest of the painting. The rest of the painting is fairly abstract, and if I made that super, super tight, it would scream out loud and wouldn't fit in with the rest of the painting. But the word warriors is big enough that it's okay for that to be legible, readable. Does that make sense? By the way, and you can go back and watch me do this drawing. I forget, here's the photograph. And as I'm going along, I'm discovering there are a number of changes that I made rather accidentally in the painting. For instance, here's the sign that I just drew. Look at the distance on the photograph between this sign and the top of this fence. See, quite a big difference. In my painting, that's all squeezed down. The top of the fence is going to be right about here, so much closer. And you can say, well, that's a mistake. I suppose if your goal is to be mathematically precisely accurate, that would be a mistake. But it's actually very much not a mistake. It's called an improvement. And that's why, in this case, when I started this painting, I didn't do any measuring, no grid, no tracing, right? I painted intuitively, and every once in a while, of course, your intuition will be wrong, and you'll do something that doesn't work so well. Of course, that happens. But in this, most of the time, because, again, back to this area right in here, on the other side of the fence, this is a football field, then there's a fence, then there's scruffy grass, and then the sign. That's kind of a wasted, that's not a good, it's neither beautiful, picturesque, sentimental, important, right? So again, without even thinking about it, I diminished that considerably. And that was if I had done it on purpose, which I did it barely on purpose, if I had done it on purpose, it would have been a good decision. I really didn't. I just did it intuitively. Most of those quote-unquote mistakes are beneficial. All right, now I can go up here and paint this chimney, two chimneys up here. One right there. They stand out quite strongly because they're far away and they're orange. All right, let's do the siding on this house is pale yellow. So I'm mixing up a pale yellow over here. Let's go ahead and paint that. That's too dark. Don't panic. Just blot it up. That's just about perfect. Right? I don't know about you, but when I'm doing watercolor, I almost always have a tissue in the other hand. I paint brush in one hand, tissue in the other. That's standard operating procedure for me, has been literally for decades. So if something's too dark, you just blot it immediately and you're done. It's the right color. The top part of this top section of this building up close here, this is also yellow. And once again, that's way too dark. You can't see my face, but I like to say, witness my distress, and I give you a goofy grin, because I'm not distressed, right? Because I've got this tissue right here. Here you go. And that's about right. Let's see. A little more yellow there. Oh, and the logo is yellow. That's really important. Part of this sign down here, that's a very important element in the painting. And that I can leave quite an intense yellow down there. Well, part of me wants to pick up a big 2-inch brush again and start making big, broad marks. But if I do that, then I'm going to have to wait several minutes again, or use a hairdryer, which I do quite a bit. But let's not do that. Let's go ahead and do some more some ink marks. And again, I don't know how much more of this painting I will do in a broadcast. Maybe a lot, maybe not a lot, but I just want you to know that will be the practice from here on out, is ink paint, ink paint, ink paint. In each case, of course, responding to what's already on the paper, on the painting. Outline a few of these windows, by no means all of them. Outlining them, all of them the way I just did those 5, in my opinion, that would be a big mistake. Why? Because it's way too much energy, visual energy, for this far off the edge of the painting. Does that make sense? All right, let's do a little bit more painting. These windows are pretty much just dark gray blob slashes. And while I'm at it, let's do, again, some dark stuff. Dark gray. Most of you know, generally, traditional watercolor is you achieve your darks by building up layer by layer by layer. And generally speaking, beginner watercolor paintings are usually I call those early journey. People who are early in their watercolor journey. One of the perennial, habitual, typical mistakes, errors that beginners make in watercolor paintings is not enough darks. Or as I like to say, where's my 8, 9, 10s? 8, 9, 10 referring to a gray scale that goes from white to black. And it's the dark end of the gray scale that is usually missing, or often, I should say, not usually, but often missing in a watercolor painting. Here's the earlier painting I did for this client, and so I got very dark there, dark in the shadows of these bushes, pretty dark here. I've got, I think, dioxazine violet, but do a little bit of that's a nice little detail, and it's very close to my focal point. Yeah, that looks better. It makes that building come forward. That will become more and more and more apparent as I go along. Yeah, to make the side of this house even darker. I thought when I did that shadow the first time, I thought it might be dark enough, but it's not. There we go, that's better. And let's do the shadow side of the sloping roof there. That's a little too dark. The roof in the photograph is actually a pale gray, and as is, it's just a conglomerate of whatever layers was on top of that, and lifted out with a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. But this dirty purple I'm doing right now. That's better. There's a fancy drain pipe coming down the side of this building. Let's do the shadow of that. It's a very pronounced shadow. It's almost like the difference between watercolor and oil and acrylic is you paint out of a different side of your brain in many ways. I don't know how to explain it. That's not putting it very well, but it's a very different mindset. And as you can see, I'm doing the whole thing with only one hand. Although I did a wedding painting a couple months ago, huge watercolor, 36 by 48 inch watercolor, and I did a lot of that with two hands. I love you. The chats you guys are doing tonight. I'm not going to read it all, but I'm reading it all now. Yes, YW, are you trying to say something to me? I see you shouting my name. That's all right. YW, where are you from? Are we allowed to ask? Well, don't answer if I'm not allowed to ask. By all means, don't answer. Monique is from the Netherlands. That's obvious from her name, isn't it? Let's do just a little bit more. I'm going to do at least first layer. Oh, and I somehow didn't pick up my smallest brush when I got all my brushes a little while ago. So I'd rather do that mark right there with a smaller brush, but I'm going to follow my own advice, and as you can. General rule of thumb. Okay, I have these figures scattered here and there, and we can do oh, and there's some cars that I sketched them in with a pencil, but okay, so there's the beginning of a car, and let's put another one back here. There actually are cars in the photograph there. And I'll just have a couple of them roughed in. Let's do some real watercolor painting. Did you catch that? That's what I call real watercolor painting. Slap it down, baby. Just make a mess. Come on, let it flow. I have not done enough of that yet on this painting. I admit I started out good and loose, but then I've gotten quite tight. So now, as you know, I can't do any pen and ink on anything down there that's wet. I am going to do a little bit of very simple shading with the pen. Again, I'm following some of my watercolor sketches. I do that, and some I do not. But since this is the second commission I've done for the same family. And then the first one, I did use, like, see here in the shadow of those gables, can you see that little bit of cross hatching? Without the cross, just hatching. So I'll do a similar thing on this one so that both paintings look like they were done by the same guy. It's kind of funny. They're so obviously done by the same guy, but anyway. All right, so I've been painting for a while, and I think it's time for me to go back to pen and ink. And I'll end this broadcast here. As I said, I'm making a short one. I'm going to add, see the grass down here, how yellow, bright green it is? I'm going to add yellow to this. Well, let's do that right now. I'll add some of that right now, and then we'll call it this episode finished, okay? And I'm going to, there we go. I'm going to add stripes, lines to that field. I haven't decided how yet. I might do it by scratching. I might use whiteout pen. I could use masking tape, of course. I'll probably use a combination of different things. Some whiteout, some scratching, and so forth to give a hint of the football lines on a football field down there. My music's a little bit loud, isn't it? Sorry. All right. I'm going to call that, hey, while I've got you up in the air, I mentioned earlier, this is the first oil painting I ever did, finished 21 years ago. Now, I was a full-time artist for many years, so don't let that fool you. It's not the first painting I ever did, it's just the first oil painting I ever did. Way back in my fantasy storytelling days, I called it. And I really have fun, but could never sell them, so I quit and started doing art they could sell. I sold out. Learned how to become a good painter. Thank you, Vince. I appreciate it. And I'll say goodbye to the rest of you. Thank you. It's been fun. I hope to be broadcasting more, of course. And maybe Friday.